Welcome to Haxby Shed and my diary of a TIG welder, absolute beginner, chapter 3. Now at this point, chapter 1 is already published and live, and I've had quite a lot of comments back on that. In chapter 2, which is not live just yet, I did a lot of messing about. There'll probably be some comments on that. But in this chapter, I'm going to go back to basics and take a lot of the advice that's been given and try to follow that as best I can. So I'm actually going to do a little bit of plain steel welding using this sheet steel here, which is 1.5mm or thereabouts 15 or 16 gauge. Now the first thing I need to do is to cut some strips off it. I don't have a guillotine, so I'll need to find a way to do that. If I try to do it with the tin snips, it'll be weaving all over the place. I think it's going to be the air cut-off tool or the air nibbler, one or the other, and I'll really need to clean this up. Even getting this clean wasn't that easy. It's got a black scale on it and it's difficult to get it off, so I'm just going to really clean up the edges where I'm going to weld. I'll just start with a couple of strips. As I thought, I can't cut straight with the air cut-off tool. Let's try the nibbler, see if that's any good. Well, I got through it okay with the nibbler, but it was hard work for it, I think. There's got to be an easier way, surely. I'm going to look out for a sheet steel fabricator, and then maybe I can get some offcuts of around this size. Save me having to mess about trying to cut it. So first of all, I'm going to practice just holding the tungsten above the work. There's a 1.6 tungsten in here. And what I've understood is, if you do that, you can't see the tungsten. If you do that, you can see the tungsten, but the gas isn't going to flow correctly. So I think you need to be about 15 degrees, so they say. And I'm just going to see if I can hold that arc steady. I've also put my reading glasses on, although they're a bit old and they're not great. But it's better than my varifocals, because at this distance, I've got to tilt my head really quite far back for it to focus with those on. It's just part of the problem of getting older. Anybody over 40 might understand that with eyesight. I've put the work quite a way along this plate. I only have this small plate. I really, in an ideal world, I'd have a welding table, but I don't. And I can rest this part of my hand here just on this corner. Still leaves me a bit wobbly, but it's better than just holding it in free space like that, where I would really struggle. So I'm going to set the welder onto DC, 40 amps. I'm going to use the trigger rather than the pedal. No filler wire. I'm just going to try to weld that seam. Nothing too ambitious, just basics. Well, I managed to do that without dipping the tungsten in the molten puddle, but I am getting a bit of cracking, and I think it needs a bit of filler wire. I've got a run of sorts, but it's standing very proud above the work. So I've also dipped the tungsten. So I've reground the tungsten and I've turned the current up to 55 amps. It's pretty uneven. This was probably my best here. This isn't too bad, but it stands very proud. I think I was in too much of a rush to push filler into it. I need to take it a bit slower. I've got a couple of bubbles here, and I saw a bit of sparkling, so that suggests from the comments that I've had that the work wasn't clean enough there. I'll turn it over and see what I can do with it on the other side then. Well, it has welded right through, so it would stick two bits of metal together. So I'll try welding along this seam now, on the back side. Well, that didn't go too badly, and you can see where I've been dipping into the puddle with the filler wire. And I did okay until I dipped the tungsten and it went pop. I don't know what this plate is. I'm a bit suspicious of it. I'm just going to try now a bit of phosphor bronze welding across here. C11, copper with 7% tin. I'm doing that because I had some success with that in chapter 2 of my diary, so I just want to give myself a little bit of a boost if I can make that bit of bronze work well. I've just polished this off again before I start, get it as clean as I can. For this I'm turning the current right down to 20 amps. That went well. It was a little bit cold here, but by the time I got to here, it was going very well. I'll clean it up a bit and I'll show you. I've polished this up a bit on the wire wheel. This was the first side. Most of the run, the filler wire, was sitting on the surface. Not so good. But on this second side, this is the steel. Although I ended up with a little bit of a pop, you can see where I've been dabbing the rod. And then here, where I did the bronze, it's a bit cold here, but by this point I was starting to get a good flow. And I think any bit of welding that I do now with TIG should end with a bit of bronze, because it's such a big confidence boost when you can get something to work. I'm actually pleased with that. It's been frustrating, dropping the wire, changing glasses, all the other things, dipping the tungsten. Well, overall I'm pleased with that. It's still a bit frustrating though, because usually I can turn my hand to practical things really quite easily. But with this I'm having to work at it. I don't think it's a good idea just to use scrap plate when I don't really know what it is. It's got that scale on it. I'm a bit suspicious about it. I think I need to be working with known plate. So I think the answer is now, practice, practice, practice. Because I really haven't done very much more than you've seen. I haven't been practicing really in between these videos. And I think if I was asked to do a bit of steel plate welding or a bit of bronze welding, I could glue two bits of metal together now. It might not be beautiful, but it would be half decent and would probably do the job. So I'll get some known sheet steel offcuts and I'll do some practice on that and get back to you later. But in the meantime, I hope that was useful to you, and thank you for watching Hagsby Shed.